Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the KETIV Autodesk Virtual Academy. Again, I'm Nigel Mbayak, and today I'm joined by a familiar face here, Richard Sanchez, or Rich for short. Yep. How's it going, Rich?
Yeah, how you doing, Nigel?
Doing pretty good this morning, you know. A little tired, but I think this is going to get us all going this morning.
Yeah.
So, if this is your first time here for AVA, definitely welcome. And if you're a returning member of AVA, thank you for being here again. Today we've got something great in store for you, some 3ds Max. I know it's something that's not that's often overlooked in terms of what software you have. If you have things like product design suites or product design collections, yep. It is something that's in there that we often see customers not necessarily using or not knowing what it is entirely. So I think we can answer that question today with a little help here from Rich, who's one of our instructors as well. On another note, I'd like to just mention here real quick something really exciting that's happening in the next couple of weeks. Historically, in April, people start installing new software, perhaps.
Maybe. Early adopters.
Yeah, early adopters, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyways, we do have a series coming up here starting in April 6th, which is, I believe, 4 weeks from today. In which we will start going over some of the new features in the next releases of your most used products. So things like Inventor, Vault, and AutoCAD. We'll be spending about an hour each one of these full AVA sessions on each of those topics and what's to come for those future releases. Can't say specifically what's in them yet, but definitely tune in on those weeks. That's going to be the 6th, the 13th, and the 20th of April. So definitely don't miss out on that if that's something that interests you, or you're thinking about moving to the next version, perhaps.
This is going to be the first place you can get that info, right?
Pretty much. You'll see it here first. Definitely don't want to miss out on that. You'll all receive notifications simply because you are AVA subscribers already. If you have people on your team that aren't AVA subscribers, definitely let us know if you want to share this information with them, and we can get them those links to get them signed up and everything for those particular sessions, if applicable. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to 3ds Max. Like I mentioned, it's something that we often see underused. People are using things like Inventor Studio to do renders. Well, Max is like a super powerful tool, and with the addition of cloud computing and cloud rendering, it's become even more complex, or the ability to make super complex renders and animations has become way easier since you're not necessarily using your local machine to do the computing, and you can leverage those Amazon servers. So with that, I think I'll pass it on to Rich, and hopefully by the end of the session, you two will be able to understand what 3D Max is all about, how you can use it in your workflow, and how it's different than some of the other tools you're already using.
All right. Thank you, Nigel. All right, let's get started here. So 3ds Max, we can see actually up here on our title slide, that image came out of Max. And that's just a good example of the quality of image we can get from it.
Yeah, hopefully it's translating over well over the GoToWebinar. I know sometimes it's a little choppy coming through the internet, but if you were like here looking at the screen like we are, it's crystal clear.
Oh yeah.
Almost undiscernible from an actual photograph.
But it really begs the question, what is 3ds Max? And it's something that I had to ask myself, when I first got the tool. And it's one of those things. It's not just a tool that comes with your design suite or your product collection that you don't install. It's not just that software that takes up space on my hard drive that I have to uninstall when I get close to capacity. Really, when the tool became available to me, I had no idea what it was for. But I researched it. I found out what I could do with it. And I was actually able to utilize this personally when I was in industry to create some really high-quality renders, to even create some good animations. But what is Max? Well, it's an easy, powerful modeler, so it's a little different than your Inventor or your Revit. It's more about maybe free-form modeling. There's different modeling tools in Max, but it's not just for artists. It's also can definitely be utilized by architects and engineers and all of the people that we generally work with day to day. It's a really stunning rendering creator tool. So 3ds Max works with most of the major renderers. It works with V-Ray, it works with I-Ray, Mental Ray. There's a new renderer in the newer versions of Max called the Art Renderer. Also gives you a really high quality image. And actually, beyond all of these options, you can also use cloud computing to render. So that's something that Nigel alluded to. And that's definitely changes the game. I know when I was using this in industry, we would set a render, and I would leave for the night. I would come into the office the next morning, and I would see what my results were. With cloud computing, that's a thing of the past, right? I get my scene set up, I push it out to the cloud, and then I work on something else, and in 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it takes, I get an email message back that my render's done, and I can check it out.
Certainly, and as similar with simulation and rendering, if you are trying to do some of this locally on your machine, and your machine might not be the most up-to-date or advanced machine, even if it is like one of those top-of-the-line machines, if your render is such high quality and your pixel density is so intense and the scenes are just huge, you can kind of render your super machine useless. You'll render it, you'll hear your fan spinning like crazy, and you won't be able to move your mouse for a couple of hours.
Oh yeah, that definitely happens. And aside from just still images, Max creates some really top-tier animations, and 3ds Max is a Hollywood-level tool. This is something that we got over from the media and entertainment side of Autodesk, but it creates top-tier animations, everything from video games to movies. I know when I first started using Max, when I got the tool, oh man, it had to be 7 or 8 years ago now. One of the big selling features of what they had mentioned at that time was that they had just recently used Max to build or to create King Kong for the Jack Black King Kong movie.
And now a new one's coming out next week, which is kind of hilarious.
So great, I have this awesome tool that creates really powerful still images, amazing renders and videos. Well, how does that fit with what I do, right? I'm an engineer, I'm an architect, so how does Max fit into my workflow? So Max's flexible interoperability means that it works great with Autodesk Inventor, Autodesk Revit, Fusion 360, Stingray. You could even bring in, files if you had a vendor that used SketchUp and they sent you those files. You could bring those all into Max. You can even work with simulation data. It's super easy to import your existing 3D models into Max. And that's something that I did. So I mentioned it was a tool that I got in the box, and really I was after Inventor. That's what I was using when I was in the industry. When I got access to Max, at the time, what we needed, and I'm just going to skip ahead to some of our sample images so you can see these and look at them while I talk. But when I got access to Max, at the time, the owner of the company wanted to create some installation videos for our product. And we had got it all priced out and realized that to create an installation video would have cost us somewhere between 20 and 30 grand. Using Max, and with the help of one of my interns at the time, we were able to take all of our Inventor models, push them right into Max, and create installation videos, product walkthroughs for a fraction of the cost. We created a 5-minute installation video for a grand total of $1,000, as opposed to having to hire an actor, find a site to film on, and actually record and edit. Max allowed us to do that. So now we're looking at an example of a render for a more mechanical product. We can see the gearing, the screws, all of the surface finishes. If you're used to rendering in Inventor or even Showcase, you know that you can get some decent quality images. You have a decent amount of control over your surfaces, your textures, some lighting, but Max really takes that to the next level. And actually the image we're looking at now is a very good example. Not only can I assign materials to every object in my scene, I can also assign finishes. So if I have just the right color, just the right material, and I then want that to be either a matte or a gloss, I can put that layer over the image. On top of that, I can add luminescence to individual images. So the image we're looking at now is a rendering of a bowling alley. And we can see that there's some nice different surface finishes on all of the chairs and tables and whatnot. But as well, there's lights throughout the scene. And each of the lights is glowing, so I can add that to individual components. And then this is, kind of our last in our set of pre-set up renders here. But a lot of people don't realize that when you're looking at advertisements for most automobile manufacturers, very, very few of those are actually photographs anymore. They're all renders from tools just like Max. I don't believe this was actually a BMW advertisement, but this was created from Max. It's an Autodesk image. And I would say anyone would be hard-pressed to tell the difference between this and a photograph of this actual 1 Series M. So let's move on. Let's take a look at a quick video that we put together for you guys. Great. So as you guys are seeing this, you'll be able to see how you can work with that simulation data. You can render out airflow over your product if that's something that's of interest or importance to you, and how you can actually make that visualization more stunning, because the numbers are great, but it's the visualization that's really worth its weight in gold. We can also work with familiar tools. You're seeing here a spline, the spline that we're able to move an object on when we animate motion. And for my Inventor users that are used to a content center, well, Max has an asset library. So there's pre-built assets, or you can also add your own. But if you're rendering a scene that you need to use or place some of your components in, if they're in your asset library, you can use them again and again. We're also looking at the art render, something I mentioned just a few minutes ago. The art render is a very easy to use, very powerful rendering tool that allows you to change your scene and see the updates in real time. Yeah, so that's one of the things. Max is a very powerful tool. You can get a lot of really high-end renders and images out of it. But it is true that you're not going to multitask too much unless you have a super powerful machine. So for instance, I did have Max open with a preset render that I wanted to share with you guys. I'm just going to open up the environment here again once this gets open. But unless your machine is built for it, you're not going to really run Max and PowerPoints and Inventor and Revit all at the same time. The laptops that we work on here are fairly decent, but sometimes we do push them to their limit.
Exactly. So I do know that we do have some customers who work in Max on a daily basis and kind of create these high-level renders for a lot of these architectural firms, doing interior designs and stuff like that. And these people have computers sometimes upwards of like 60 gigabytes of RAM, and dual Xeon processors and all of that fun techie stuff.
There we go. So here's Max. This is the interface. As you can see here, there's a lot going on, and we're definitely not going to cover it all today. But this is intended to be the first of a multi-series session, or a multi-session series. Today we just really want to introduce you to the tools, show you what some of the capabilities are, and we will have another session where we really go into the specifics and the details of, one, rendering a still image, and then two, getting set up and rendering an animation like a walkthrough. So this interface here, let me go ahead and zoom out, and I'm actually going to, yep, I am on the right workspace here. So a lot of the layout and the icons will be familiar to my Inventor and AutoCAD users. You can see I have different workspaces I can use. I still have my quick access toolbar and all of my ribbons and all of my panels. They're just different tools on them, right? Everything that's specific to Max. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. And you can see that I'm actually working in a whole environment here. This is something that I had pre-set up, predefined. And I have my sunlight that you can see up here in the top of my screen that's really lighting my entire scene. You'll notice on my particular scene that I have set up that there's people. There's a tool in Max called Populate. Basically, you set up your area, you define how dense you want it to be, and it will add people to your scene. So if you're perhaps building a product that's going to be set up in a public place, you can easily, add those people to your scene without having to maybe find images and have them photoshopped in. Max does that all for you.
Exactly, and it's not like everything's going to be like wrong to scale if you set everything up correctly from your model. It kind of takes all of those properties from your model into Max, then determines like, okay, so how large is this person going to be in respects to this building? For example, you're not going to get like Godzilla-sized people next to buildings. So.
Yep, exactly. So there is a full-blown materials manager in here. Again, that's something that we'll go over as we start working with rendering out still images. But it's just as easy as navigating your way around an Inventor or a Revit model. And actually, this was built kind of a hybrid. The building came out of Revit. The components came out of Inventor. So you really can say that Max helps put the pieces together, right? How many of us work in a blended tool environment. There we go. Get that view just right. But so many of us are working on a team where some of our users actually work in Revit, some of our users work in Inventor. We can put all those pieces together in 3ds Max and create some amazing images that we can then use to give to the customer or even use to help sell a job.
Exactly.
So this makes all of our engineering data that much more valuable, right? So now it's not just a drawing or design specs, manufacturing instructions. Now we're taking that same model that we're already creating and we're repurposing it. We're pushing it out to the marketing team. So again, I mentioned Max does take a lot of resource. So as much as I would love to actually start the render here, I'm not going to do that. I will do 2 quick things before we jump back into our PowerPoint. I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to import your components from, let's say, an Inventor file. So I'm going to launch the import tool here. I'm going to browse to my Inventor project file. This one just happens to be in my downloads folder. Here it is. And if I find the model I want, I can simply go ahead and bring it in. So I'm going to get this menu here, and from here I can decide, am I going to bring in actual body objects or just bring it in as a mesh object? Do I want to merge this with the current scene, which in our case is what we would want to do to place, this is actually a model of a car. If I wanted to place that on the street in our scene, I would just merge that with our current scene. Or if I was trying to just create a render of my product, I could simply completely replace the current scene. I can also decide if I want to import the Inventor materials, or if I'm going to reassign all of the materials in Max anyway, that might not be so important to me. But you'll see very few options here, not too complicated. If I were to click OK, it would run. Again, I don't want to do that because I don't want to lock it up. And then as far as our render setup, that's also fairly straightforward as well. And here's our render dialog. So we can see here that I can have preset render settings already configured. I have a whole host of different renderers to use. And I can also set it for an iterative rendering mode. So a lot of times as we're working, you're going to want a quick render to see kind of what the finished product would look like without going into that full detail. You can do that really quickly here. With a tool like Inventor or Showcase, once we hit render, that's it, right? We have to commit. So whether that render takes 15 minutes or an hour, we really don't know the results until it's done. Iterative rendering allows us to kind of see that as we go, and then we can go to a production rendering to get that really high quality finished image. So again, I don't want to render this right now because it's just going to take too long, but we will go back to our PowerPoint, and I can show you that I have already pre-rendered this image for you, so we can see the level of detail, the quality that you're going to get out of the tool.
Yeah, and this is straight from that model. It's really interesting to see, and you can kind of set, time of day. You can set, and based on where you set your sun or whatever your light resource is, it does understand where those shadows are going to lie, and it'll give you,
Exactly, and it's super easy to go ahead and place environmental lighting, such as the sunlight, to place spotlights, much like the lights under our canopy here. That's stuff that we definitely will go over as we start to render scenes and then render those animations. So you certainly want to stay tuned. I know Nigel's going to put out the notice as to when those next sessions are going to take place. But again, we just wanted to introduce you to Max and actually explain what it is and how it can be used. Because it's in your toolbox. It's really powerful, and it's definitely going to make your designs that much more valuable because it repurposes them again.
Right. It's another one of those, you already have it, you might as well start using it. I understand that things like Showcase and Studio do exist, and a lot of our customers are still using things like that for their simpler models. But if you do want to get to that next level of deliverable and kind of create show-stopping images and sometimes even animations, 3ds Max is a tool in which you can do that. It looked a little cumbersome when Rich opened the menu. I know the first time I opened Max, I'm sure the same thing for Rich was. It's a little overwhelming. There's so much stuff there. But I think the same can be said for something like Inventor. The learning curve isn't that crazy, especially if you've already used something like Showcase or Studio. A lot of the features are the same. It just takes it to that next level.
Exactly, and that's one of those things. There are a lot of menus, there's a lot of buttons, but we're going to explain all of those to you. So if there are any questions, or if anyone's had any questions coming up to this point, we certainly would be happy to answer them.
Certainly, and before I jump into questions here, I'm just going to turn the camera back on so you can see our lovely faces. Again, I'd just like to mention, something really important. In the next couple of weeks, starting April 6th, if you missed this already at the beginning, I know some people trickled in kind of halfway through the session. We are doing a What's New series of webcasts. And if you were familiar with our sessions from last year when we did the What's New in AutoCAD, Inventor, and Vault 2017, it's something very similar for the next release of Inventor. So definitely stay tuned. You'll get information. Since you're already subscribed, you'll get information to when those webcasts are coming. They're going to be here in early April. Definitely don't want to miss those. We're going to have product managers from the Autodesk teams who actually develop these products kind of show us what they've been working on for the last couple of years. Even for some of these tools, it's taken them to get to the actual production side of things, or getting live to customers.
And I can say we've already seen some of the new features that are coming in Inventor and Vault, and it's definitely a session that you don't want to miss.
Exactly. I'm sure some of them, some of you have seen it. Some of the Vault stuff, I think even last week when we did that Lake Oswego event up in Portland, and then things from the Inventor Insider, if people are familiar with that we had in December here at the office, or here pretty close to the office. A lot of those features did end up coming into the next release. So stay tuned for that. If you missed out on some of those great events, you definitely don't want to miss out on this. It's going to be the first time pretty much anyone will be able to see some of these features from the product managers themselves. So let's go ahead and move into some questions here. And the first one is, can I bring in files that maybe are non-Autodesk software, maybe SOLIDWORKS files, step files, IGEST files, things like that, into Max?
Definitely, yeah. You can bring a lot of those files right in, depending on the source. So if it's an IGEST or a step, it might not have that material information, but it's great because you would probably reassign those materials in Max anyway. But no problem. I think I mentioned SketchUp files, definitely SolidWorks files, and if you have any of those IGEST or steps, those can come in as well.
Exactly. Yeah. It's it's like any other Autodesk tool. You can bring in foreign stuff, no problem, in most cases, and just start working with it. You might not have all of the information that SolidWorks person had in terms of like features and stuff, but it'll all be there, the whole model. Oh, yeah. And sometimes it'll keep that assembly. In Inventor specifically, you'll have all of that assembly information, which is great. Let's see here. Another question is, where can I get training for Max? I'm already like an Inventor Studio or publisher, or not publisher, Showcase user.
Well, if you're already a Showcase user, you'll be familiar with some of the concepts in Max already. But KETIV does offer a standard 3ds Max training.
You're actually teaching that class.
Yeah, I'm teaching it in just a couple of weeks here. But if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and message us. We'll have someone contact you, get you some more information on that. I'll have to double check. It's either a 2 or 3 day class, just depending on the level of detail that you want to go into.
Exactly, exactly. And if you want to figure out if Max is right for your workflow, certainly give us a call or shoot us an email. We'll be more than happy to talk to you and figure out, if you need something like Max or something, like Showcase might be sufficient for what deliverable you actually need. There's some people who certainly do need Max for, that next level stuff, which is great. Let's see here. This one's from William. Are you going to be handing out any kind of tasks for us to be able to do so we can follow along with the presentation? I don't know necessarily. I know that if we do hand out, we do like a follow, click, click, click kind of workflow for an AVA, it's going to take us way longer than an hour to kind of run through something like that. But there are some data sets that we can certainly share, and you can try to render those on your own computer or kind of follow along after the fact. I know that the second you do hit the render button or the import button, some people's computers might just stop working, depending on how complex the model is.
They won't stop working. They'll just,
they'll just be in a stasis, I guess you could consider it, for
until they're done rendering.
Exactly.
But we do have some data sets that we can use, and I have a couple of data sets in mind. So we may not necessarily, assign homework or give you, tasks to complete, but we can certainly provide those to you, and then as we go through the session, you can take notes or keep in mind that they are recorded, and then you can walk through it yourself with the data set afterwards.
Exactly, exactly. So just don't expect us to hit the render button during the session. I think there will be some lag on the other end of the spectrum. It is definitely not something that, we can't render out that image in 5 minutes, that's for sure. Even in the cloud, something like that was really complex and took some time. Yeah. So along those same lines, if you are like a subscriber to Autodesk software, whether that's a maintenance plan or you have a current subscription, you do get cloud credits. And I don't know if everyone here knows that. For every seat you have about 100 cloud credits. If that number is still correct. As of a couple months ago, that's the number that you got. Right. When you purchase the software, they might have promos to give you more. But you can use stuff like that to render your render in the cloud. So
it is worth keeping in mind, especially for customers that have multiple users. That's 100 cloud credits per seat. So if you have 10 seats in your company and no one else is using them, that gives you 1,000 cloud credits to use to render in the cloud and free up your machine.
Exactly, and that's that's something that would be great to leverage. It's really easy. There's a button in Max that it's like the regular render button, which is like the teapot thing, and then there's like a cloud.
Yeah, it's you basically decide if you want to render local, if you want to push to the cloud. If you say you want to push it to the cloud, you get a different interface that then sends it up to the Autodesk servers.
Exactly, and then you get notified when that does come back to you. So it's really, really simple. You can run multiple at once, which is super awesome, something you can't do locally for the most part. And if you need to get 10 images out in a couple of hours, you don't need 10 computers to do it. You just use your own.
It's funny, I mentioned when I was in industry that we used Max to create those installation videos. Mm-hmm. And render farms weren't as popular or as big back then, and what we did was we used a program that comes with Max. It's called Afterburner. It's from Autodesk. What it allows you to do is create your own render farm. So we'd every night have to take over all of the other office machines, and we'd have between 15 and 20 machines rendering frames for us, and then the next morning we would take each frame and compile it into our video.
Exactly, and I've seen that video that you've created. I don't know if that's something we can share.
Yeah, I think we're working on being able to share that publicly. It is property of that company, so we're working on being able to share that.
And if we can, definitely something really cool. It does show like random flying objects everywhere moving into position. It's actually pretty great. Yeah. And when I saw it, I was like, this is really cool. So I think with that, I'll go ahead and leave everyone with another 20 seconds or so to put in some questions. Again, if you did miss any part of this presentation, it is being recorded right now. So hi, Mom, if you're watching on YouTube. It'll be on our YouTube channel either this afternoon or tomorrow morning by the latest. Our guys are going to get to work on this right after this is done. And if you do want to see it, definitely be subscribed to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/KETIV Technologies. So with that, last question here. Afterburner comes with Max ?
Yes, yeah, I believe it's called Afterburner. I'll double check on the name of it, but it does come with Max, or maybe a separate download from Autodesk that you get for free with your Max license, but it allows you to create your own personal render farm.
Exactly. So we can get you some more information on that one. We'll definitely shoot you an email after this. I have your information actually. So I'll be able to reach out to you, or Rich will be able to reach out to you afterwards. Again, if you do have any auxiliary questions, even if they don't have necessarily relate to Max, definitely shoot us an email. Our email is there on the screen, or give us a call at the number that you see in front of you. So with that, it's actually Backburner.
Yeah, Backburner.
Exactly. So we just got notification of that by our guys in the back, and there's a lot of people behind the scenes here for AVA. It's not just myself. I definitely like to thank them for being here every week too. Without them in the back, and without all of our viewers, things like this wouldn't be possible. I wouldn't be broadcasting to no one. So thanks all for being here. Next week, definitely stay tuned for iLogic Part 2. So if you're here for Part 1 a couple of weeks ago, Thomas from Autodesk definitely went over some of the higher level iLogic things, and he's actually going to go over some important modeling techniques and how to get your actual geometry to start using iLogic in the proper way. So if that's something you want to see, definitely stay tuned. You'll receive a notification email for that. And like always, we're going to be here at 10 a.m. Pacific time on Thursday next week. So we'll see you then. Thanks.
Okay.